day 2 of the farmers' protest here in the national capital and around national capital in Punjab, Haryana. Just yesterday, we saw violence unfold in many bordering states where farmers who were trying to get into and cross the border into the national capital were dissuaded from doing so. In a consistent sort of battle that is spanning out between the central government and the farmers, it looks like farmers are not giving up. They are still at the borders. They're hoping to come to Delhi once again. It's a repeat of what we saw in 2000 and 2021. The demands this time around, as we discussed yesterday extensively, are a little too much, as many would say, Kartik.
Absolutely, Shweta. I think, the question right now is who's going to blink first. Is it going to be the farmers or is it going to be the central government?
Doesn't look like central government.
It doesn't look like the central government for sure, because I think the central government will be able to ill afford any of these demands which are now being raised by the farmers. And the farmers also at some point need to understand and need to be aware of the macroeconomic picture of the country, wherein it is going to be difficult for any economy to comply with their demands. Now, quickly, let's just run through what are their demands. They are looking at the implementation of the MS Swaminathan formula, which is C2 plus 50% as MSP, not just on the existing 3 crops, and a legal guarantee of that, not just on the 3 crops where there is some form of MSP right now, not the MS Swaminathan formula, but the A2 plus FL formula, which the farmers feel is depriving them of higher wages for their crop production. But in addition to that, there is, of course, this whole formula right now, the MS Swaminathan formula, which is going to give a higher income to farmers. Now, the farmers at some level need to understand that that is not something that the government of India can afford. And they need to figure out a way to agree with the government on what is the best that the government can do. And I think what the best the government can do is something that the government is doing already by way of subsidies. So it cannot be, the best of both worlds. You can't have the cake and eat it too. So it has to be a case where either the subsidies, which are to the tune of 10 lakh crore rupees for fertilizer subsidy, 2.5 lakh crore rupees for PM Kisan Yojana, and a plethora of other subsidies like free electricity, free water, no tax on farm income, all of these can be kicked out. And then we can perhaps look at a formula which offers higher MSP. But then this higher MSP is also something that the farmers are demanding on 23 crops. I mean, you have it on the
actually on 200 crops. They're demanding it on 200 crops.
So officially the farmers are saying officially the farmers are saying 23.
They already have MSP.
But supporters of farmers are saying that it should be extended beyond the 23 to 200.
So as per the latest notification this year, government already supports and gives MSP on almost 23 crops. It does not procure everything that is produced by the farmers on all 23. Most of the production that is procured is basically on the 3 important crop that includes your wheat and rice, consumption for which is higher than the other crops. But at this point, a legal guarantee essentially means that everything that is produced by all the farmers has to be procured by government at all times.
At 50% higher than the cost of production, which industry works at 50% margin.
And add to that, the fact that there will be a buffer stock which cannot be consumed within the country, will be rotting in FCI, that cannot be afforded by the country.
Now, in addition to all this, Shweta, you've put it very well. In addition to all this, the farmers are saying that exit WTO. They don't like WTO. At the same time, in the same breath, they are saying increase import duty on foreign imports that go into farm produce. So, I mean, these double standards also need to go. It's
at this point to ask for a pension, to ask for all the debt that farmers have to be waived off, and to add to that, also ask for subsidy in continuation with a legal guarantee on MSP.
And asking the government to repeal all the cases against farmers who protested in 2020, 2021, and those cases to be taken down completely. So I think overall, it's not a great situation, and we have subsidized the farm sector enough. I think at some point the farm sector needs to be far more competitive, and there has to be a greater understanding of what is it that the government can afford. Because if the government has to afford it, who's going to pay for it? It is going to be taxpayers like you and me. It is not going to, the money is not going to get printed. It's not, we are not going to go into, scenarios where we are printing new currency just to take care of what the farmers should get. get. Eventually, it is going to be the taxpayers' money, which will have to, and given our own fiscal deficit targets, which are still, despite, you know, the numbers being hopefully reduced to 5.1% and then to 4.5% in subsequent years, we are still looking at a distance far away from the target of 3% of fiscal deficit. So if the government continues to increase its expenditure and continues to stay far from the 3% fiscal deficit target, where is that money going to come from? That money will come from taxpayers. So I think all sympathizers right now with the farmers saying that, you know, our kisan is our bread and butter and that is where our food comes from, need to actually take a reality check and see that eventually if the government has to blink and the government has to give in, that money is not going to come for free. That money is going to come from taxpayers like you and me.
Absolutely. And here's my, you know, 2 bits on how the farmers' protest is panning out. It does appear that farmers who have come back on streets and they have the right to do so. It's a fundamental right to protest, even though it hurts the economy, it hurts the traffic flows, it hurts all the institutions, including education, to people who are expected to reach to their offices on time. And you can see visuals on your screens of massive traffic jams that a lot of people are faced with as a result of farmers' protest. That withstanding, farmers are demanding a debt waiver. They're demanding higher legal guarantee on MSP on the basis of the Swaminathan's formula, which will mean central government will have to spend more. Remember, farmers already do enjoy subsidy in fertilizers to water irrigation and are subsidized to the tune of about 70 to 80% of their total produce at this time. What looks good versus what is actually good for the economy, I think that would be the larger debate when it comes to farmers' protest. We'll continue bringing all those updates here on News 9.